Hi, everybody. Welcome to Secular Sunday Service. We put this together with a group of people that I'm pretty sure everybody's excited to have here tonight to talk about what we do in the community and why we do it and the positive things we do, because there's just a lot of negativity around. So I'm just going to go around in the order that I see everybody in. We'll start with you, Thomas. Just thank you for coming in, and if you could tell us who you are and what you do real quick.
Yeah, my name is Thomas Westbrook. I have a YouTube channel called Holy Koolaid, where I make animated videos and I try to debunk crazy pseudoscientific claims, but I do it in a super laser-focused way. So it's all scripted, it's all heavily edited and polished. And I don't just cover religion and atheism. I'll also cover things like psychics and paranormal claims and chi energy and global warming denial, all sorts of stuff. Like it's a whole wide range of topics. And then when it comes to boots on the ground activism, I've helped to organize a protest in Florida of the Make America Straight Again conference that advocated for the death of gay people. I organize a conference every single year called the Faithless Forum, which brings the atheist YouTube community together. Unfortunately, we had to postpone this year because of COVID-19. But I do a lot of different stuff within the community, and I work with a lot of content creators and help people improve their channels and stuff like that as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming. This is the first time Thomas has been on my channel. Everybody else has been here before, but thank you for coming, Thomas. Godless Engineer, welcome. How you doing? What you do?
Hi, I'm doing pretty good tonight. So I make a lot of response videos on my channel to religious arguments. I try to analyze them and give people the best, arguments and information so that they can stand up and use their voice. I post a lot, so yeah. If you want a lot of content, my channel's got a lot of that.
Yeah, I have a hard time always catching it live, so I'm always late too, but. You do a lot of great stuff, especially in terms of the historical Jesus, and you have your Crustus app, which I'll make sure to put in the description. But thank you so much for coming. John, Dark Matter, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my channel has been around since about 2008, and I do animations, usually regarding the great debate, religion and from an atheist perspective. And I do what I do because I'm concerned about how religion affects our politics, and I want to be a voice out there that is. That is a resistance to that religious hegemony, and I choose two different ways to do it. Sometimes I'm serious about it, and I make serious animations, and sometimes I'm satirical. And I think that both approaches have their own, unique benefits and drawbacks. So I try to do both. And since animation takes so long, I post maybe about once a month.
Thank you. And yeah, I agree that there are merits to both the straightforward way of going at things, but there's also a lot in terms of you being satirical. I think it works really well, especially with your channel. So
thank you.
Everybody loves your channel. Aron Ra, how you doing? What do you do?
Thank you. I've been an activist, passionately involved in secular activism, science education, and that sort of thing since probably at least Y2K. And then found using my YouTube channel as an outlet for that. And the surprising thing is where I felt completely powerless against the religious right once upon a time, and we're still, heavily outgunned and outfinanced and all of that. I found that the more that I did, the more that I could do, and that's been a huge boon. And like Dark Matter, I think that all approaches are necessary. One of the things that I noticed is when you're a quiet, well-spoken, educated intellectual, say a Carl Sagan, for example, you're only going to appeal to so many people, and you're not going to threaten anybody. And so that's why I've noticed that, the Satanic Temple tends to have some segues into political activism that regular atheists can't manage. So we need every approach.
Yeah. It's definitely a problem, especially here in America, being able to kind of broach into politics as secular people. It just doesn't happen here, and that's a huge issue.
Yeah, I'm on the board of directors for a couple of national organizations, including one that promotes atheist candidates in politics, and is actually a PAC supporting atheist candidates. And one of the successes there is that in the last election cycle, like 9 out and open atheists were elected to public office in Arizona, just to give you an example. So we are making progress that way.
Yeah, I went to school. Actually, I almost wore my U of A shirt just for you, Aron, because I know rivals there, but I did live in Arizona for a while, went to school there. So that really scared me, to be honest.
It'll be like 3 months, I think, before I'll have my Bachelor of Science in Anthropology from the School of Human Evolution and Social Change at Arizona State University's Institute of Human Origins.
Jesus,
yeah,
man.
And that's awesome. But still, rival schools and all. Erin Lewis, my good friend, how you doing tonight? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm all right tonight. It's kind of frightening outside. It's 109, so I'm coming to you from my guest room. Well, I kind of stumbled into atheism, or at least atheist activism or advocacy through Freedom from Religion Foundation. They ended up helping me with a situation I had with my son's school. And then it was pointed out to me that I might offer a unique voice in the atheist community because of my background as a adult entertainer and a writer. So I guess I bring a unique perspective to atheism. I also, like Thomas, in fact, partly inspired by Thomas, have taken on a lot of pseudoscience, ghosts and psychics and all that kind of stuff. In my most recent book, Expose Yourself. So basically writing is my thing. Advocacy is what I'm going toward, hopefully adding another voice to help normalize not believing in weird shit. Is pretty much my goal.
Awesome.
That's a good one.
Thank you, Erin. And last but not least, only because you joined last, Mr. Robert Reed, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, everybody. My name is Robert. Looks like I'm probably the rookie of the group. Kind of a newborn atheist, just kind of joined the movement. I'm on a channel, gonna go for it with 4 other cats. I've got my own channel, Stronger with Robert Reed, which addresses only mental health and kind of my struggles and my travels with it, and hopefully someone else can connect. And again, I said in the pregame show, I'm going to do a little fanboying, but at least in my bubble, right on top of me, when I was learning about, I guess, am I an actual atheist? I studied all of Aron's talks and his debates and everything else, and it made me realize kind of what he was talking about. You got to put it out there, right? And I literally wear it on my sleeve as I got this huge tattoo on my forearm. And I've got the most interesting stories that I'm sure all of us have, where when you tell people you're an atheist, you get these immediate reactions, right? It literally like, oh, so you worship the devil, you hate God, you hate America, and all this other bullshit. I was like, no, it actually just means I don't believe in your God or anyone else's. And so kind of my jam on the atheist channel and kind of my personal life is just getting it out there. And the guy that you've been friends with for the last 20 years, guess what? He doesn't believe in a God. You liked him now, you should probably like him after. We only disagree on one thing. I still like pepperoni and mushroom and onion pizza. I love football and I love being lazy. I love my dogs. I'm just like you. We just disagree on one thing. And so kind of my whole thing is just put it out there as long as you're safe and let people know you don't believe in their God or anyone else's God and you're still just like them.
Yeah, it's true. And Thomas, you made a good point that atheism equals baby eating. There are so many really fucked up things that people seem to think about atheists when they're not educated at all. Like my nephews, I have 2 nephews that are some kind of Christian. I don't know. They're very, very Christian. They go to a Christian school and they read the Bible every night and stuff like that. And they honestly believe that my son and I worship the devil because we're atheists. That's how they know it. What are other weird things that you guys come up against that people claim that you do as atheists is just fucking ridiculous?
I absolutely grew up in Catholicism thinking that atheism was synonymous with Satan worshiping. Absolutely. Until I was probably 20 something, I thought that because I never looked up the word. That was just like an evil, horrible thing. And actually one of the comparisons I made, Robert Reed brought this up, that when you tell people that you're an atheist, even though they may have known you for, your whole life or however long, all of a sudden it's like you walked up close to them and farted. And it's like this horrible, like rude, rotten, awful thing to say to somebody. And it's like, but I'm literally still the same person that I was, 2 seconds ago before I told you that I just don't believe in that. And so one of the reasons I got involved in all of this is because I had that same experience repeatedly when I told people what I did. Well, you're a stripper. Oh, cool. Well, you're a drug addict. Your boyfriend must lay on the couch all day and smoke pot. And, you have like 4 kids and you're collecting food stamps or God knows what, 1,000 different stereotypes and stigmas that came along with being a stripper. And I realized that there were a lot of parallels. Actually, the person that wanted me to write my latest book told me that. She goes, well, you have such a voice to offer. You've already been through this. And I was like, well, I guess I have. So that was my real experience with just the word itself, atheist, is so charged because most people don't know what it actually means. And it just has this great stigma attached to it when it's really a fairly benign word that shouldn't equate with evil.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dark Matter, didn't you do a cartoon that dealt with some of the stereotypes of atheism?
Oh, yeah, I think I've done a couple. So a lot of those were from a while back, because that was some of the first things I wanted to get off of my chest was, the negative stereotypes. And I think that, it was easy to perpetuate such stereotypes because for a long time, atheists didn't feel safe being open about it. I know I didn't for a lot of points in my life. I didn't feel like I could be open about it. And I know a lot of other people couldn't either. And with the advent of the internet, with finally having a place where you can link up with other people in an anonymous way and not have to deal with backlash, we realize we're not alone. And then we could start talking and making the things that we actually advocate, that we actually believe can get spread around. And I think that we're making a lot of headway, and people are starting to realize that we're just normal people. And at this point, at this juncture, I'm starting to kind of shift to other types of people who can't just hide by as an atheist. If I didn't want to be if I didn't want to receive any sort of hatred or bigotry or anything like that, I just always had the option of just hiding, of just not saying anything, and just never bringing it up.
Yeah.
But now there's people. Now we see that there's people who don't have that option. They can't hide in their skin. They can't hide in their gender. They it's apparent. It's physically apparent. And so now I'm kind of trying to shift to, be an advocate for other progressive ideals as well that are informed by my experiences of being an atheist. Otherwise, I wouldn't have any experiences being a minority. I just, it's always been something that bothered me to an extreme extent, even though I could hide it. So not being able to hide it is unfathomable to me. And so I think that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, actually, Erin kind of answered it already, but in terms of why we all started doing this, we all started speaking out and created our channels or started advocating for secular voices. I thought if everybody could just tell that story. Mine is, I've been an atheist pretty much my whole life. I was raised Catholic, but I never really believed. But it wasn't until my son turned 11 and he started asking questions, and I didn't want to indoctrinate him into atheism either, so I just taught him about all religions. He decided he was an atheist, but then when we moved here to the South, he felt like he didn't have a voice, and we both felt very alone, and that's why we came into the community and started advocating for for people to have a voice, to be able to speak out openly as an atheist. So that's my story. Thomas, why did you start?
Sorry, just unmuting myself. So I got started in the community I became an atheist in my early 20s, and it was right around the time I was getting out of college. But I was actually raised as a missionary kid in the Muslim world, and I grew up overseas. I spent more than half of my life traveling, living, and studying abroad, and because I was so heavily indoctrinated with religiosity, specifically a particular flavor of evangelicalism that believes in young earth creationism, that takes the Bible literally, that believes in all the miracles and demons and devils and speaking in tongues and the whole shebang. I believed that well into my early 20s. And so when I started to kind of peel back the layers of the onion and dive deeper and realize that truth withstands scrutiny, we shouldn't be afraid to question, we shouldn't be afraid to doubt and look behind the curtain. And when it all started to crumble, I just needed a method. I needed a way to vent and to get my voice out and be heard. And, I was living in the States at the time here in Texas, and I just felt like YouTube was the best venue that I could have to get my voice out there and be heard. So I started making videos.
Awesome. Thank you. GE, what about you?
Well, for me, I had graduated with my master's degree, and so I kind of looked for some place to really put a lot of energy into, and I had actually just had kind of become an atheist, a little bit before that, and I kind of needed an outlet for my new worldview, because I remember I commented on a Facebook post that had something to do with describing God, and I said that it was a crutch for the weak-minded, kind of thing. So a lot of my family members who are highly religious didn't like that too much, so they unfriended me, and it caused some issues with family members and everything. So I decided that I'd create a Facebook page called Godless Engineer, and I just started posting memes and articles and stuff like that to it, and it eventually grew pretty quickly to about 100,000 on Facebook, which doesn't really mean a lot. And but then after a little while, I decided to start making YouTube videos. So I mean, essentially, pretty much being ostracized by family members and everything kind of got me into standing up and using my voice to help other people feel not afraid to do that same thing.
Awesome.
Has anybody lost family over this?
Family, no. Friends, yes.
My mother won't even look at my channel because it has the word atheist in it.
Jesus.
So,
Yeah, but my mother, I gave her an autographed copy of my book, and of course, she's never cracked it open. And she has not watched any of my videos except the ones that are exclusively about science. If it's about religion at all, she can't be bothered.
Wow.
She won't. My mother won't even, because my name has the word atheist in it. Even though I do a lot of the climate science videos. I'm a scientist, that's what I do. She won't watch it just because of the name. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, one, I think I may be the dumbest bastard in this whole group. We got people who are going overseas and masters, and Aron, you got stinking getting your science degrees. We got a 3-time author, and I can't remember what I had for lunch, but I'm sitting here and listening to everyone's stories, what got me to come out and kind of get loud about it, I had already told one of my friends who I work with that I don't believe in a God. And at that point, I was thoroughly insulted by two people that I work with, like badly, about being an atheist. And I was like, fuck y'all. And I was going to do it anyway, but it kicked my drive, into the next gear. So I went and got this tattoo just to say, fuck everybody. And I remember I was at work, and the friend that I had already told, where there was two other people, and they were asking me, what does this tattoo mean? And I told them, it's because I don't believe in a God. I'm an atheist. The friend that already knew, she kept her mouth shut. This person just kind of had this really uncomfortable silence. And this is what literally made me get online. It's like, fuck it. I'm telling the whole world I don't give two shits. The third lady, I'll never forget. She took about 3 steps back and was like, oh, like I had just said, you know what? I'm a Catholic priest, and I love raping little kids and getting transferred from parish to parish. That's my jam. All I said was, I'm an atheist. And she literally took steps back and was like, oh. It's like, okay, if that's what people actually think about us, fuck it. And I'm an opinionated bastard anyway. And so I had a Twitter account from years ago when I used to do radio, and I never touched it. And the moment that happened, I went home, I opened up that fucking Twitter account, and I was like, at that point, I had like 2 followers. I'm like, I don't give 2 shits about the consequences, but if that's what people think non-believers are, I'm telling the whole fucking world. And so, I mean, that's what got my feet on the ground, because it's ridiculous that we're the ones seen this way. And again, it only addresses one label. It only addresses one topic. Do you believe in a God? That's it. You can stand up and say you're a Catholic, and people will applaud you, but you belong to what I would call a corrupt criminal organization, and no one says 2 words. Tell people you're an atheist, right? And literally people back up and get away from you. So I'm just like, fuck it. And I have lost friends, and I don't give 2 shits. Not about them.
So a little story for me. I've not many people know this, but I've got there's this metal band called Atheist is what their name is. They have a really cool logo, and I got their logo tattooed really big across my back that just says Atheist. The tattoo artist made me wait 2 weeks before he would actually tattoo that. And even then he was like, are you sure? You can't cover this up if you change your mind, which you probably will. I'm like, I'm fine.
Well, though, I mean, I guess it's not surprising.
Yeah, as a former tattoo artist, I have a number of stories along those lines. One of them is this guy wanted me to tattoo an eyeball in the middle of his forehead. And I told him I wasn't going to do that. And he says, well, why not? And I said, because you're not going to use me as an excuse for why you can't get a job.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I do have a good friend, though, that had a motorcycle accident where he skinned the hair off the back of his head, and it never grew back because it's a scar. Now, he wears his hair long, so you can't see it. But he can part it. He knows right where it is, of course. And so I put an eyeball there.
Fucking creepy.
Well, I mean, I understood why he wanted me to wait just to make sure that I wanted it, but it's just because it wasn't about like how big it was or anything like that. It was just the fact that I'm an atheist, and I don't know. It kind of at the time it kind of made me think like, well, I guess that's what living in North Alabama gets you. But I mean, I can understand wanting people to wait, because I mean, I've seen the horrible tattoos that are all over the internet of people misspelling words and just having just the worst tattoos out there. So I mean, I can understand having to wait. I just thought it was kind of odd that the main contention was that it said atheist, spelled correctly, obviously.
The question is, if you had asked for a Catholic tattoo or a tattoo of a cross, would there have been a similar waiting period?
Yeah,
no.
I don't know, but I also don't think so. The guy
discount on that shit.
The guy that
I didn't do religious tattoos. I mean, there was a lot of people that wanted. I would do I did a cross. I remember I did a cross for somebody when I was getting started, and then after that, I didn't. and it was just a plain cross. But then somebody else wanted, he wanted anytime they wanted a crucifix or any kind of religious symbolism, I just didn't do it. Much like when they say, hey, can you do Old English lettering? Or when they would ask to be, they wanted to be a Tasmanian devil because, my friends all call me the Tasmanian. Sure they do. But there was this one guy that had a completely different twist on it. He wanted Jesus being crucified, but because he's in the Navy, he didn't want it to be a regular cross. He wanted it to be a cross that is actually an anchor. And there was just something dark and sick and terribly funny about that. So I did it.
Jesus.
Wow.
Just speaking of the Catholic priest thing real quick, my uncle is a Monsignor in the Catholic Church. And he lives in Austria, so I don't see him very often, but I have attempted, I'm not allowed to tell him that me or my son are atheists. I'm not allowed to do that. But I have tried to bring up the abuse in the church with him, and he will literally get up and walk the fuck out of the room. He will not.
My mother's Mormon.
Why?
And he had the same kind of reaction. I remember it was like 1990, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a story about this. I mean, of course, everybody's seen it since, but the very first time I'd ever seen there was a priest that was being prosecuted in Louisiana for having molested all of these children, and the governor was Christian, so the governor pardoned him because, that's what Christians do for other Christians, I guess. So the parents in this case were outraged, and they went to the church seeking justice. And a bishop was quoted in the newspaper saying, and this is 1990, this is before all the news broke. Mm-hmm. And this bishop said that if the church were to prosecute every pedophile priest, the church would be in litigation in the billions of dollars.
It's something like 6% of Catholic priests have either been found out or admitted to, and that's a big fucking number.
What was the percentage?
I wanted to make a newspaper.
Now they are up to their ears in billions of dollars in litigation costs.
Yeah, but this is the first time I'd ever seen it. The first time I'd ever heard that story. I wanted to make a newspaper clipping of it, and I remember my mother found that paper that I had set aside and threw it away. Because she would protect other religions just to protect God.
Jesus Christ.
I don't know why it's so easy to, I've also tried to talk to my mother about it, who's obviously also Catholic, and she just either flat out denies it or won't have the conversation. It's easy for them to push aside the bad things that occur within their belief system and not actually confront them or say, okay, this is fucked up, maybe something should change. But they're so set in their belief that nothing's going to change that, and it's hard. Do
you think that's like an addiction, like an addiction to being correct? I
think it's embarrassing to admit that you're wrong.
Okay, maybe that's it, because it's like I played a little football in my time. And I don't give two shits if a football player is found guilty of doing something, killing dogs, raping the babysitter. I'm not a part of that. And I will tell, it's like, that dude is not me. Fuck that. And if the NFL needs to kick him out, suspend him, you do what you got to do. But there's nothing that's going to make me rally the troops around this one person or 20 people. I don't give a shit. But I've seen that too, where someone of a certain faith will completely step out of bounds. And instead of their brothers and sisters saying that person's a piece of shit, they rally their troops around them and they defend them at all costs. And I was like, is that an addiction to being correct, that you just can't say, man, we fucked up, or we're part of something bad? That's never made sense to me.
I think there's a psychology to it because the cops do it too. It's a sort of brotherhood.
Touché.
Where even when something happens, they rally around each other and refuse to admit to any wrongdoing. And I think Erin has a good point that it's really fucking hard to admit when you're wrong, but especially when it's something that means so much as your fundamental beliefs. Especially so many people, that's the core of who they are. This belief in a deity or their church or whatever, that is, they consider themselves a Christian before anything else, even a mother or whatever they do, or a family member, whatever. It's they're part of Jesus's world first. And so it means that their belief system or their church or anything like that might have fucked up, might be doing something wrong, might not be perfect, is a scary thing to do.
I think that one of the things that religion offers are other types of magical thinking, whether it be, your chiropractor or essential oils or ghosts or any type of religion, really is that because it is so open to interpretation and not really based on evidence, I think it really gives people a lot of room to justify whatever they need to justify. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's hard to let go. I honestly think that a lot of people don't necessarily believe so much, but I think that it gives them an easy out to justify bad behavior. And that was one of the things actually that started me writing my first book, was the Christian outreach group that used to come into the clubs with their little goodie bags and things like that. And the lady that ran it was somebody that I worked with when I first started dancing. And she was literally one of the nastiest. She basically fit every stereotype that you could ever imagine. Drugs, prostitution, there were rumors that she stole. I don't know if that's true or not, but just all that kind of stuff. And so then when she became a born again Christian and wanted to save all the girls in the club, she used her faith as a justification for her bad choices. And that was one thing that really pissed me off, because it was like, I literally watched her make those choices. And it was like, you had every opportunity to not do that. And now all of a sudden it's part of this greater plan. And I'm just thinking, that the fact that it was God's plan for you to do copious amounts of cocaine and GHB and suck dick behind the dumpster, it must feel much better to be able to say that this was part of this greater plan. And now I don't have to accept responsibility for my, yes, I was trying to make it up.
You make it sound
responsibility for that, for my actions. Now it's not my fault.
How many of your
I have no idea.
how many of your clients were like were devout Christians or religious of some type?
You mean customers?
Customers, yeah.
One or two. Actually, one of my favorite chapters is, and it actually talks just about that justification, is called God Told Me to Touch Your Pussy. I have one guy in particular who is probably one of the only people that was super outspoken about his religion and wanted to make, because he didn't actually say that to me, he said that to somebody else, but he tried it with me and failed. But he was very adamant about it and using it as, basically trying to convince me what a great guy he was, and so we would spend this, I would have to talk to him for like at least 15, 20 minutes before I could get him to go get a dance. And he would just spout on, he was a social worker and he went to his church and he did all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, humoring him, but he literally did use and did say, like I said, not to me, but to a friend of mine, because he kept trying with me, and I stopped him, and eventually I had to stop the dance because I was like, this is stupid. We're just fighting the whole time, I'm like trying to keep his hand away, and I saw my friend come out of the VIP room not that long after, and she goes, "This guy tried to touch my pussy and told me that God told him to do it." And so that actually inspired a whole chapter. I never danced with him again because he was gross. But yeah.
That's amazing.
There's not a lot of guys that would say that. I think I probably had more atheist customers or more customers that would say that they were a certain religion, but almost because it was like an accepted thing. Like one guy said, "Oh yeah, I'm Catholic. I don't go to church. I don't like really practice or anything." And I said, "But why are you Catholic?" And he said, "Because I was raised that way." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you don't follow any of that?" And he says, "Yeah, but I'm Catholic." And I was like, okay.
Some of the nastiest stories I ever heard. When I was in college ball, I was a big time member of Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And again, back then, I didn't even know what atheism was. But I knew that there were members of my team that did not participate in FCA. And it always, kind of, what's wrong with you? And the worst, or I should say probably the nastiest stories I ever heard in FCA were from the strongest Christians. And I mean, you're battling this demon. And, you know, and again, like you said, it almost God gives you permission to do X, Y, and Z. And I swear to you, probably the craziest story that I remember from FCA is as you finish your meeting, you all stand up, you got this room of big muscular guys and you're holding hands and your head is bowed. And I won't say his name, but he was the leader. And when I say leader, I mean, this dude was on fire and he could not stop jerking off. And he felt bad about it. And I will never forget, because we were all trying to stay in character because he was so tortured. And I'll never forget, we're all sitting there and our heads are bowed. And, you know, thank you, God, you helped me pass my algebra test. Thank you, God, I made, you know, all Southwest Conference. Thank you, God. Then we get to this guy. He goes into great detail and is like, dear Lord, please give me the strength to resist the temptation of masturbation. I went to the porno store off of I-35, where if they can't beat your prices, no one can. I rented Junkyard Dykes Volume 6. I used Lanolin E-Lotion. I used the reverse European grip. And he's going into crazy detail. And we're all sitting here, and we're all laughing, and we're dying. We are dying on it because he is honest. He is tortured. He cannot stop pleasuring himself. And the nastiest stories I've ever heard as a believer were coming out of the mouths of the people because I was next level. I was hardcore, born again. I was tapping people, a stranger on the shoulders and asking them, where are you going to go when you die? And there were people on top of me, intensity-wise, and the nastiest stories I've ever heard were in FCA. I lie to you not. And so, where my screen is backwards. So when you're sitting here talking about some of your customers, where the nastiest stories I've ever heard were from the strongest Christians and Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And we even had that in the NFL. One of my teammates who was an all-pro was a ordained minister. And this dude was the most ungodly person. He had the worst temper. I've never seen anyone cheat on their wife more. I'm like, wow, we're traveling to, and I'm pretty sure the 3 ladies that just came out of your hotel room weren't your wife. And so, yeah, the harder the core, the Christian, kind of the more tortured they are with whatever.
You think that's because religion represses people's sexuality, so it's kind of like an overcompensation in the other direction?
You know, I think it's because I remember having a talk, because again, when I came out as an atheist here in Austin, a lot of people were trying to save my soul. So everyone kind of sicked their pastor on me. And I've had a lot of talks with pastors over the last 10 years. And I remember one of the guys, and I'm sitting there, I was like, so everything, okay, carry the one. So basically being human is bad, right? If I look at someone who's hot, that's bad. And I remember he was like, yes, you got it. I'm like, wait. So basically, my dad ejaculating inside of my mom makes me a piece of shit just from the jump. And so again, I think it's kind of like the cookie analogy. If you tell your kid, don't have that cookie before dinner, you've made that the most delicious cookie in the history of fucking cookies, right? Please continue to tell people masturbating is bad. Having sexual urges is bad. You have just made sex the deepest, darkest, and instead of enjoying a healthy, vibrant, just enjoyable sex life, you are now on my screen. Yeah, like you said, you're now sucking dick behind a dumpster, right? For crack rock or some fucked up shit like that. Instead of just saying, look, if you feel safe and respect it, go for it. You may like it. You may think it's a pile of shit, but the decision is yours. Just go for it. Yeah. So, I mean, at least for us growing up, you dangling that sexuality thing over your head, saying it's horrible, it's gross. Don't ever touch it until you're married. And when you do, there's still this laundry list of shit that you can't do. I mean, what do you expect people to do?
So we were talking about perverts, and strippers, and prostitutes, and
my kind of conversation.
And then cookies. And the subject never changed.
I think that's only part of it, though, Robert, in terms of why you'll see it kind of coupled hand in hand, where some of the people who have the craziest, filthiest sex lives also have, the strongest religious adherence. I don't think that it's necessarily that the religion makes the taboo more appealing. I think that that's part of it. But I know when I was really religious, I would see people who, when they, had these cravings and these urges because they're taught their entire life that it's wrong, then they felt a need to become more religious to compensate. And so it would push them further in the religiosity direction, just purely out of guilt and shame.
Do you think part of it too is the fact that, especially in the Christian religion, they know that they can get, cleansed for whatever they do. So no matter how badly they fuck up, as long as they ask for that forgiveness, it's going to be okay. As long as they love Jesus, it's going to be okay. So they can kind of toe that moral line a little further because they know no matter what they do, they're going to be forgiven as long as they ask for forgiveness. That's part of it.
That's part of what actually drove me towards atheism or non-belief when I was a kid and learning that aspect of Catholicism and Christianity, because it was kind of like, well, how does this actually stop you from being a shithead? Because you can just be a shithead and then be forgiven. And it's like, but why, I've written about it a couple of times. Actually, I think it was my first or second piece for Free Thought today was about how the Bible taught me that God is a jerk. And I talk about how I used to think about, well, what if I stole a cookie and then got hit by a bus and before I was able to repent and ask for forgiveness, because it was, for me, it was like little kid logic. So I was like, well, then I would go to hell. But what if but if I was able to repent right before, I'd be cool. So as long as I don't die like suddenly, I could pretty much do whatever I want. And that was when it was kind of like, well, where the morality and ethics and things like that just sort of broke down for me. And that was when I started to really question stuff. But of course, when you question things out loud, especially as a kid, you just get in trouble. That's right. I have Sunday school and all that stuff.
I have a question from the chat. My good friend Mr. Bear wants to know if anybody considers themselves an anti-theist, and at what level. If you want to explain, go ahead, Aron.
Yeah, I know that no God exists. I know that specifically the Bible God doesn't exist to the same degree and for the same reasons that I know that no leprechauns exist. And I've met Christians who would argue that they know that no leprechauns exist for the same reasons that I know their God doesn't exist. One is that there's no evidence of them, and that's enough for them to declare that they know that no leprechauns exist. The lack of evidence is enough for them to declare that knowledge. And then second, they know that no leprechauns exist because everything we hear about leprechauns is impossible and obviously fictitious. So my knowledge that their God doesn't exist is approved apparently by their own logic.
Let me ask this question real fast. Being the rookie in this group, what is the definition of anti-theism?
Yeah, the definition of anti-theist is that you have atheist, which literally means just that you do not believe. There are some people who want to say that disbelief means not just that you don't believe it, it means that you believe that it's in the negative, that you have a belief in the negative. I don't know why they have to turn a non-belief into a belief, why they have to make unbelievers into believers, but there are people who argue this. Yeah. I just posted a thing on my blog about this yesterday. And so they say there's a few people who want to say that atheists are the ones who take a hard position that there is no God. But what it comes down to is when you ask the question, do you believe in God? Yes equals theist, no equals atheist. Now, within the atheist category, if you add, people will say that they don't have a belief that there's not a God either, because you always have those kind of philosophers who want to come on, to try to twist things around some way. They fall into the atheist category of, the agnostic category of atheist. And those who have a positive belief that there is no God fall into the anti-theist category of atheist.
Wait, say that last part again. Say that last part again.
Yeah, so if you have a belief that no God exists, one of a few different words for that is anti-theist. Okay. Anti also carries another connotation that was expressed by Christopher Hitchens, that it's not that you're against God, all gods, you're against religion, all religions, and that means they're clergy as well.
Okay.
I have a bit of a different understanding of anti-theism. Like the way that I understand it is that if you were describing agnostic atheist, if you have a positive belief that no God exists, that would be like Gnostic atheism, and if you're adamantly opposed to organized religion, that would be anti-theism.
The way that Christopher Hitchens clarified that definition, that would be correct. Originally, anti-theist was just that you had a positive belief that there is no God. Hitchens sort of changed that definition by saying that it's not just that you disbelieve in God, but you're anti-religion, you're anti-clergy, and all of it.
That's what I thought. I thought anti-theism was kind of this belief that religion is bad, that it's a poison.
Yeah, and my position, the way I've always expressed it, is that I think that historically religion has been a net negative against humanity.
Right. So that is or that's a part of anti-theism.
It's an interpretation. I don't want to say that one or the other is correct.
Okay.
People have used anti-theist as a hard belief that there is no God, and people have used anti-theist to mean that they object to religion entirely. And there was a guy named Atheist Nuance who was the first person ever to declare himself to be an atheist. And he said that he recognized that atheist just meant that you don't believe in God, but he also created what he called another religion, and I can't remember what he called it. It was something having to do with conscientarians. And this new religion also proposed that gods do not exist. And so he considered that a religious position, that you believe that no gods exist.
That was a religious position?
In 1600s, yeah.
Huh.
Now,
Yeah,
Europe in the 1600s and declaring yourself an atheist, that's a badass.
Yeah.
Dark Matter,
Yeah.
you want to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, anytime I've been called an anti-theist, it was because I actively speak out against religion, and the times I've argued about it, it was with people who it's because I think that religion is a net negative, that the world would be better off without it, and that is where the argument stems from, and why I've been called an anti-theist. I've usually always associated with the label atheist, but technically I would be considered an anti-theist. It's just I hesitate to say that openly because people so often conflate that as being like a bigoted thing, like I'm bigoted against religious people or something like that, when really that's not the case at all. My problem is more with the belief system, not with the people.
Yeah. That's why I don't like the word anti-theist as opposed to anti-theism. Because it sounds like you're opposed to the person, and I don't like the label either for that reason.
You're not against the individual anti-theist.
I understand.
You are the individual who's against theism.
In terms of when I'm trying to communicate what I'm about to the common person, they're not going to catch the nuance. They're simply going to be put off by the terminology.
Right. People don't catch nuance? What is this news?
John, GE.
My argument always. What's that?
I have a question, actually. So, if religion is considered, for the most part, historically a net negative, do you think that there are some people that do actually need religion to feel like they have a base of morality? And I asked this question because my mother was Catholic. She passed almost 7 years ago now, and but before she passed, I told her that I had started that I'd become involved with FFRF, and I'd written about it or started to write for it, things like that, and that I was an atheist. And she was literally the only person I told in my family. And she told me at that point that she didn't believe in the Bible, that she thought that a lot of people in Catholicism, a lot of people in her church, a lot of the way she was raised, she went from kindergarten, Catholic school, all the way up to high school, got married at 17. I'm the last of 6 kids. So she was very, very Catholic. And she told me that she was actually agnostic. She said she didn't really believe that the Bible was literal. She told me personally that she thought I wouldn't go to hell because I was a good person. She said the God that I want to believe in would never send you to hell. But she considered herself Catholic because she liked going to church. She liked her friends at church. She liked, you know, the community aspect of it. And so she would still be considered somebody who was religious, even though privately she told me she was technically agnostic, without using that word in particular. And then a piece that I just wrote actually for FFRF most recently, had that in mind, but I also had my neighbors in mind who are super Mormon, like couldn't be more Mormon, but have never mentioned it. They've brought us flowers from their garden and you know, other things like that. Same thing. I had another neighbor that had mowed our lawn because he'd known that my husband had had cancer at one point and was afraid that he might have been sick. And so he mowed our lawn without asking. And these are just really good people. And so while I do think that religion has caused a lot of harm, I still have a soft spot for those people, obviously for my mom, but you know, for my neighbors and things like that, where I don't see that religion necessarily makes people shitty. I think that people take a shitty belief system and are still good in spite of it. And so I don't know that I would ever be able to 100% say that I am completely anti-religion or anti-theism. But I'm wondering what the other people's thoughts on that are.
The way I see it, to me, religion is like alcohol or drugs. It simply turns you into more of what you already are. When you go to your company Christmas party and the person you share a cubicle with is 10 drinks past sobriety and they call you, you know, a nigger, a slut or whatever, and you get back to work on Monday, you're like, you know, that was the alcohol talking. That wasn't really me. Like, no, that was you.
You're really an asshole.
Your alcohol gave you permission to say what you finally felt. And to me, religion is nothing more. And I've told people this before. Religion is nothing more than the worship of your own ego. Because do you ever notice how you and your God, you agree on everything, including the stuff that you disagree with. And so if you already think gay people are faggots, guess what? So does your God. And so it's like, do I think religion is a kind of a net negative? I'm kind of a 49-51. But if you really want to know who someone actually is, kind of ask them who their God. One of my friends is actually very religious, but her God thinks gay people should get married, thinks gay people should be allowed to adopt kids, thinks women should be able to choose what they do with their own reproductive issues. Her God is a great fucking, and she calls herself a Christian. So I'm like, if Christianity was, let's call her Beverly, if Christianity is what Beverly believed in, my whole Twitter feed would be what goes good on pizza. I think Ewan McGregor is hot as shit, and stupid thought questions. But again, religion is nothing more than who you are on alcohol. And so like your mom's is talking about, you know, I don't think you're going to go to hell and all. That's her God because that's her. And I hope I'm not stepping on any toes when I say that. My friend Beverly, she thinks gay people are just as equal as everyone else. Shocking, so does her God. So it just, to me, your God is nothing more than your ego. And it's just you when you're drunk. That to me is what religion is.
Eventually, that's what I titled the piece, was a God made in man's image, because I felt like people were taking their religion and morphing it into their own morals. But it's almost like they didn't feel like they could have a sense of morality or ethics without that kind of baseline. Like it was kind of scary to not have that parachute or that thing to anchor it. But in reality, you knew that it was coming from them and not their belief systems.
It's kind of like the flip. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, just like with Catholicism, my mom was very, very accepting of a cousin, her nephew that turned out to be gay. And, you know, obviously that wasn't very, you know, a good portion of our family disowned him. Yeah. And another cousin of mine actually had to choose between the Catholic Church and his own gay son, and eventually chose his actually not even eventually, fairly fast, he chose his own son. But I don't think
I just wrote this evening. I just wrote this evening another article that I'm working on, that one of the things that I detest about religion is how it severs these relationships, even with your own children, even to justify the estrangement or death of your own children over what is effectively a magic imaginary friend.
Yep.
Aaron, you would be the guy to ask about this. And before I do, I'll tell you what I think too. It's the argument that religion had to have some kind of evolutionary benefit to be so universal throughout the world and long lasting, and I think that it probably did long ago when tribes needed that cohesion for safety and numbers and everything. But as we progressed, it became like a vestigial organ. It became kind of obsolete. And so that's my thinking on the matter. But what do you think? Do you think religion had an evolutionary benefit that is kind of obsolete now?
Aron.
I was asking Aron.
Okay.
Since he's the evolution guy.
Yeah, you said Erin, so it threw me off.
Aron. Sorry.
There's been a lot written about people adopting religion through evolutionary mechanisms, that through natural selection, if you make the assumption that the grass is moving because it's just the wind and nothing to worry about, then what happens if the grass is moving because there's a tiger in it? That sort of thing. And I would say that there's a very strong selective pressure when you have a religious system that is set up to kill the infidel on the word of one or two witnesses. It won't be many generations at all before all of the critical thinkers are eliminated from that population, if those are the people that are in power. And very often they find their way to be in power because they evoke the emotions and the lowest common denominator of people. So it's very hard to overcome that. When does the intellectual perspective ever beat out mob mentality?
G, we didn't hear from you about it. Do you consider yourself an anti-theist at all?
Well, considering the discussion on definitions, I definitely think that religion's harmful, and that the influence that religion has on people as individuals as well as societies is ultimately not beneficial for the progression of like the human race. So however you want to label me as far as like anti-theist or whatever, those are the basic things that I really hold to. And that's why on my channel I try to advocate for people to critically think about things that they're told in their sermons and in the Bible and just anywhere, that ultimately I feel like it's very dangerous thinking because it doesn't comport with reality, and that any way you split it, I think that results in bad things happening.
No, I understand.
I won't argue that.
Yeah, what about something I think I learned from Aron, actually, epistemivism. Is that similar?
Or just I learned that word from Aron too. It's kind of like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's kind of, what all did we learn from Aron?
I feel weird just being in the center box of this game.
It's right where you belong, actually.
I've seen so many people try to take over and pervert however we identify, to try to redefine what. That's why I don't want to redefine what other people are. I just react when they tell me that I'm not an atheist because I don't meet their criteria of what an atheist is. That's the only time that I attack agnostics for saying that I'm not an atheist. So if they would just leave me the fuck alone about my label, I wouldn't be imposing mine on theirs. But we had to come up with apistemivism, because I get so sick of the fallacy of the false equivalence, where they want to say that creationism is based on evidence, or that theism, this one's even more bothersome, that faith is based on evidence and science depends on faith. So they're so annoying to me, that the fallacy of that argument, that we came up with epistemivism, which is just somebody that does not believe anything on faith. And since that's written into the fucking definition, then you can't impose me a believing on faith. By definition, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that term. Like I said, I'm going to fanboy a little bit. I can't even call it a debate, but your train wreck of a talk with Ray Comfort. when he kept trying to nail you down, everyone's like, oh, it's like so, yeah, like someone smelled a fart, right? And when he kept trying to nail you down with faith and like, do you have faith in your wife? And that was the first time I heard the word, did I say epistaphist? And I was like, I got to look that shit up. And I adopted it. And I've used that term before as well. And it just, yeah, if you have to rely at least on the religious definition of faith, you are truly lying. You just are. And I had told someone, to me, it's no different. I live in Austin. And if I told someone that San Francisco is across the street from my house, and they pulled out MapQuest, they asked Siri, they got me a plane ticket to go to San Francisco. We drove to San Francisco. We talked to people and I still maintain, nope, I don't care what you say. San Francisco is across the street from my house. I am now lying, right? And that's where I adopted the term epistaphist, because I thought you nailed it. It's like, if you have to rely on faith, you're lying. You are absolutely positively lying, because you've been shown that 2 + 2 doesn't equal fire trucks. But you have faith that it does, and you're gonna stick to your script no matter the fuck what. And so I thought you nailed it with that. And I've adopted that term, even though I don't use it too much because I don't know how to say it. But yeah.
That's the first time I've actually ever heard that word. And I gotta say, the first picture that came into my mind had nothing to do with the actual definition, but that might be my own problem. That, and I thought Ray Comfort was an actual joke. Like when I first saw it, but I mean, I literally thought it was a parody page. I saw something that he had posted and it showed up somewhere, and I had to go over and look. And I'm like, this guy, he's joking. He's not for real. And then I finally got confirmation that guy actually really is a thing. And
he knows that he is full of shit. He knows that everything he says is a lie, but he makes $4 million a year not having to get a real job, and he lives in a 2-story house on Malibu Beach.
Oh my God.
Walk that
So
guy.
he came to one of the mega churches here in Dallas, and he gave a 30-minute presentation where he did the exact same stupid skit that he's been doing for more than 20 years. He goes,
with the banana.
Where he talks about, if you've ever told a lie, well, then you're a liar.
Oh, you're a liar. Yeah.
He does that skit, the one stupid little paragraph that he's rehearsed. A parrot could do that by now.
Yeah.
But this guy was at Prestonwood Baptist Church, where they have a sanctuary with 7,500 seats, and they paid Ray Comfort the average person's annual salary at that time. Let me just summarize it. They paid him $1,000 a minute to give that presentation. That's why he lies his ass off.
All right. So if you look up Ray Comfort, because I did, they look, I don't have a life. I've got these dogs and this crazy brain. So I got a lot of time to kill. If you look up Ray Comfort, when you look up his net worth, it's like $88,000. Right? I'm better than that. But when you say shit like that, it's like, now I get it. Because, again, when I was on the road to trying to figure out kind of, am I an atheist or not, I looked up a whole bunch of shit, and Ray Comfort was one of them. And if you look at his videos, the Living Waters, it's like how to talk to a Muslim, how to talk to an atheist, how to talk to a gay.
Wow.
It was the same script. It was, have you told a lie? Have you ever stolen anything? Have you ever jerked off? It was the same thing every time. And when I saw Aron's debate, and I saw both of Matt's debates and all his other debates, it's the same shit. It's a script. And I remember watching the one from the Atheist Experience, Matt Russell, and then Matt fucked around and did another one just a couple months ago. Ray asked him the exact same questions in the exact same tone of voice. And it was, so you're an atheist. So you believe in the scientific impossibility that nothing created everything. Aron, you checked him on that. Matt's checked him on that. Every fucking person that hears that question has checked him on that and given him scientific reasons why that question is full of shit. And when you sit here and you tell me that he's making all this fucking money, now I know why. Now I know why. To me, that's nothing more than a crack addict.
Did you say that he makes $1,000 a minute?
At Prestonwood Baptist Church, he gave a 30-minute presentation and was paid $30,000.
All right, guys, I'm sorry. I'm shutting down my channel. I'm
I mean, I was about to say, if you were to give me that kind of money, I'm a diehard New Orleans Saints fan. My whole family's from Louisiana. If you even say the words Atlanta Falcons in my family's house, you're likely to get the fuck out. I saw that, Mama. I don't give a shit. Atlanta can eat a dick. If you pay me $30,000 a day to say I'm the biggest Atlanta Falcons fan, I'll take a razor blade right now to the back of my right calf and scrape the fleur-de-lis off of my fucking calf. But if Ray Comfort is getting that kind of cash to stick to that script, now I see why.
Yeah, he makes $4 million a year.
I could live with myself after a while. You know, I would rather have an honest living and be able to stare myself in the mirror. Like, I understand everyone has a price.
Sure.
But it doesn't seem right. It's like, if you know that something is full of shit, at least get a better argument. At least, read
but
a
I
little
mean,
bit of
if your
philosophy.
W-2 is kicking 7 figures, right? I remember having this argument with someone.
I don't think that's why he
one.
started, though. I don't think that he necessarily started thinking, "Oh, I'm going in it for the money," because like most pastors aren't filthy rich.
No, you're right.
Most pastors
But
are
when
small
you
town.
get to feel like, I know it just picks something that you don't believe in, that I don't believe in, and if you start out making $30,000 a year, then out of nowhere, actually, there was a documentary called Broke, and I'll never forget it. And it was a I can't remember the percentage, but the overwhelming majority of professional athletes, just 3 short years after you retire, you aren't at zero, you're beneath zero. And it's like you've got $75 million in the bank in 1990, and in 1995, you are flat broke because money is an addiction. And what no one ever tells professional athletes is these paychecks are going to stop one day. And that money becomes an addiction. And so, yeah, you're right. Probably in the beginning, Ray just thought he was preaching the word of God. Then someone gave him this fat check, like, holy shit, there's $100,000 in my bank account off of 2 hours worth of work. I can see how you can sit there and be like, Aron, so you're an atheist. So you believe in the scientific. And after Aron dunks on him and tells him, that's a bullshit statement, you go to the next atheist, and then the next atheist, and the next atheist, because every time you check your account, you get $30,000 extra dollars. I can totally see it. I think it's bullshit, but I can totally see why you would do it.
I got to share with you something. It was a year or two ago, probably only a year ago. I was in Richmond, Virginia, and we were something came up about the Ark Encounter, and I was talking about what shit the Ark Encounter is, and Ray Comfort's name came up, and I made a blog post where I called Ray Comfort an idiot.
You wouldn't be wrong.
I would not debate him again. Matt Dillahunty told me that Ray Comfort was so dishonest that he would not debate him again. I said, I'm the same opinion. There's no reason to debate that guy again. And I was surprised that Matt told me that he would never debate Ray again, and then he did.
Yes.
And Matt has his own reasons for that, but I said I wouldn't debate him again. I'm not going to debate him again.
Yeah, so go ahead.
But the thing is I said, I made a blog post. I wrote a blog post where I said that nobody needs to give him any more attention because he's just an idiot fraud. That was the exact phrase, idiot fraud. And Ray Comfort sent me $1,000.
What? Okay.
So
Ray Comfort's a complete moron.
Okay, stop.
Take it.
What? I think I can fill in the blank. Why did he send you $1,000? Just for saying his name and giving him pub?
fuck if I know. At the moment that he offered $1,000 check, I'm sorry to say that I really needed $1,000.
I mean, I would have cashed it too.
So fuck yeah, so would I.
So I've got quite a unique story because I think I hold a particular title given to me by Ray Comfort that nobody else I've heard of holds, and apparently I have produced the most morally depraved and sickening video on YouTube. Blasphemous. It made him sick apparently, and the reason why this all came about was that he put out a call for atheists to email him to talk to him over Zoom, right? And I was like, I really want to see how dishonestly he edits these interviews that we always see him call a movie, And so I emailed him, and we spoke on Zoom. I recorded it and everything, and I put it up on my channel. Well, a month later, here I see Answers in Genesis is premiering their new Answers.tv streaming platform, and apparently one of their leading things is how Ray Comfort has talked to two atheists. One of them is reasonable, and you understand why if you see it, which Ray has it on his channel now. And then there's me, and apparently he contrasts me with being like just the worst kind of atheist, and it's all because of this video I did where Living Waters had put out like a short little 1-minute thing on Twitter where it talks about like the really highly unlikely thing of an atheist getting one of those fake $1,000 bills asking you, hey, are you going to go to heaven or hell kind of thing. And so in the video, no shame whatsoever, I talked about how, well, it's pretty amazing how, you can make an atheist drop to his knees and suck Jesus dick so quick. And then I also pantomimed the sucking of the Jesus dick. And so, apparently that made him sick to think about sucking Jesus dick, and that was what was so morally depraved to him. And the entire conversation that I had with Ray was fine. Like I was totally calm. Like I didn't yell at him or anything like that. I tried to throw his own book back in his face, but of course he redirected and wanted to talk about other things. I noticed one thing though. Ray Comfort loves to bring up sex for some reason.
Yes.
Fascinated with sex. In our discussion, he brought up like the whole idea of going to a courtroom and how Jesus has paid our debt and everything like that. Well, the example that he led with was, let's say you've slit 3 hookers' throats.
Okay.
What?
Okay.
Why do you go there, Ray? Like, what is wrong?
I gotta jump in real fast. So I've always said, if you can make an emergency room surgeon say, God damn, you're gonna die. I'm a woman self-defense teacher. I've spent the last 15 to 16 years, and I'm gonna bring down the mood. I've spent the last decade and a half hearing the worst stories imaginable. If I held 7 seminars in a month, 4 of those seminars will make me go home and drink myself unconscious because I hear the worst stories I've ever heard, thinking humanity can't get any lower. And then I hear this lady talk about why she came to my self-defense class. I'm like, thank you for trusting me. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to go home and drink a handle worth of gin because I need to get this out of my head. My point is, when I hear Ray Comfort and some of these other Christians talk, they come up with these fucked up ass sexually violent scenarios that make me say, what the fuck is wrong with you? Because I've heard him on his Living Waters channel. It's like, okay, just like you said, what if a man rapes 17 girls and slits their throats and drinks their blood and eats their fecal matter? I'm like, dude, I teach women self-defense and I've never heard that fucking story. It's like, what deep, dark demon are you trying to suppress? Because again, if you can make me say, holy shit, it makes me wonder what's going on in your brain. So yeah, the most depraved stories I've ever heard have coming out of the mouth of Christian apologists, and it makes me scared. And again, I teach women self-defense for a living, and the ladies that have experienced the worst shit on the planet, their stories pale in comparison to Frank Turek, to Ray Comfort, and to every other Christian apologist I've ever heard. And I was like, either you made that up because you're thinking about it, or you've done it, and it makes me hate them even more.
Yeah, Frank.
I just killed the movie.
Frank Turek is easy to hate.
Ted Haggard getting
He's
arrested
the first evangelical, touring preacher kind of a person that I ever physically met, and I absolutely hated that guy on the first. They had to drag me out of the room. I'm not kidding.
Holy
The
shit!
atheist group that set up that talk took me out of the room to try to calm me down because I was going livid over that guy's shit.
I can't blame you.
When we did the Q&A part, I got to hit him with a question that caused the audience to applaud. My wife got to hit him with a question that caused the audience to applaud, and my son did as well. And I absolutely loathed that guy. And we've tried to arrange debates between me and him, and he won't do it.
Yeah.
And I guess it's because I don't have the cred, because he once debated Christopher Hitchens. And once you debated Christopher Hitchens, I guess you're set for life. You don't have to go slumming with lower criteria anymore. How do you go beyond that? But I absolutely loathe that guy. And one of my exes was telling me, I saw on her Facebook that she loved Frank Turek. And I'm like, you realize that nothing that guy says is honestly true. I mean, every single thing he says is a lie. The title of his fucking book is a lie.
Yeah, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist.
Yes.
What about the one he's got now where it's called Stealing from God, where he makes the case that atheists steal from God?
Yeah, you give a lot of good pushback on Turek, John. So I always enjoy those ones. But what do we do when? Okay, so part of the thing in terms of atheism, it's really, as we just said, it's just not believing in something, but we get attached to certain other, I don't want to say beliefs, but ideals like evolution, Big Bang, different things with science most of the time. Probably because a lot of us are critical thinkers. But how do you end up separating the difference between, yes, I'm an atheist, but we all have our own, belief. We all understand science in our own way. Not every atheist believes in evolution necessarily, or the Big Bang, or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't believe in the Big Bang, just to throw that out there. I mean,
I accept it.
Yeah, I accept that the Big Bang is the leading theory, and that in order to overturn the leading theory, I need to produce another theory that describes all of the data that the current theory explains better than the current theory explains it. And I can't meet that burden. So I have to accept the Big Bang is the leading theory, and I've got nothing that I can pit against it that meets the criteria to do so. But that doesn't mean that I believe in it. Why? Because I don't understand it. Okay. And I don't know anybody else who understands it. And I've talked to some of the leading physicists in the world. Nobody understands it. That's what they tell me.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I understand evolution. I'm going to stick with evolution because I can explain that to other people, and I've got that one. But Big Bang is beyond me.
Well, I think that the reason why we end up having to defend all these various positions is because religion itself proclaims to be the ultimate answer for everything. And so they end up like jam-packing in all these different things that are covered by different areas of science, Big Bang, evolution, just all areas of science out there are covered. And we end up having to be like not experts, but at least knowledgeable in like such a wide area of things that it at some point it becomes overwhelming at times. I know at least I've felt very overwhelmed when, you're in a debate, like you're in a debate about one topic, and then all of a sudden they switch on over to like Big Bang Theory or evolution or something. And it's just, sometimes you get whiplash, or at least I do.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't seem to matter though, no matter how much knowledge you may have on a subject. I mean, go up against Aron and evolution or John. I have tried to speak to people about the Big Bang and the origins of the universe. I fucking have an astrophysics degree, worked for NASA, and they still look at me like I have no fucking clue what I'm talking about. So it doesn't matter. Sometimes there's just no changing their mind. Yeah. That is very upsetting a lot of the time. So
The saddest thing is I've been most successful in convincing religious people that, you know, the Big Bang Theory is a better explanation for the beginning of the universe, by telling them that a priest is the one who came up with the idea in the first place. They think, you know, it's an atheist conspiracy to discredit God. Well, no, the atheists were opposed to it in the beginning when it was first proposed. We, you know, atheists argued that the universe was eternal, was always existed, you know, and then, you know, right. But when, you know, like, it's time and space, you know, coming into this singularity, you know, we simply can't, you know, see beyond that. You know, that's the you know, the known universe. But you know, atheists resisted that, you know, when that theory, when it was first proposed, and then eventually came to accept it, well, you know, with the evidence, the cosmic microwave background radiation, and you know, the expansion, everything. You know, so we went by the evidence and adjusted our views based on the evidence. But to convince somebody by telling them, you know, well, no, this is, you know, a priest came up with this, was the first guy to come up with this hypothesis, and that's what I've had the most success with, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
Can I just add a clarifying point?
They can't hear that.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
When, you know, I agree completely with what Aron said in terms of how no one really understands the entire, like, mechanisms of the Big Bang and how it happened and stuff.
Yeah.
At the same time, a lot of times we'll hear Christian pushback to that, where they say, "Oh, you don't understand it, but you just believe it on faith. That's no different than us believing it on faith." And I think that the two sides to that coin that, you know, if there are Christians listening to this, I'd push back on, is that, one, you're arguing as though they're both bad. You're arguing from a position of, look, you have faith too. It's just as bad when you do it as when I do it.
Yeah.
And two, you don't have to understand exactly how something works or how something happened to know that it works and that it happened. The second that you stop believing in gravity, it's not like you can jump out the window and float away. You know, it still works. It still happens. So you can have all of the fingerprints of the Big Bang, and you can measure them, and you can look back, and you can get all of these signs and stuff, forensically exploring the universe, you know, through astrophysics, through your field, Momma Atheist, and get all of this evidence to know, like, it actually did happen for sure. We know that there was this origin point. We know that the universe isn't 6,000 years old. There's all the evidence pointing in this direction. Now, how did it happen? That's how we're going to start kind of unraveling the thread and figuring out how this sweater was put together.
And to piggyback off what you said, Brooke, and I'm kind of new to this, so if I'm using the wrong terminology, please correct me. But it's kind of the equivocation that we believe in stupid shit, so do you. And so it's kind of like, you know, we all believe in this on faith. And Turek and Bruggencate, the only reason why I have not pushed those two fuckers into moving traffic, because it is currently against the law. But I've heard both of them say the exact same thing, to where it's like, I don't know how God made a cow. I just know that he did. And I'm like, okay, one, that's stupid. Don't ever say that again. But like you said, it's like, we don't know all the ins and outs of the Big Bang Theory. We know it happened, and we can mathematically and scientifically rewind the clock and get to at least as close to a starting point as we can. And so they try to put us on the same level as, see, we both believe in stupid shit, so who has more faith? And I think you fucking nailed it. It's trying to put us on the same plane. It's like trying to put us in the same bucket and see which crab can get to the top first without pulling the other one down. Yeah. The big exception is the science community can prove it.
Yeah. It's like they ask us, how do we know that it happened? We don't just say because scientists tell us. We say,
exactly.
You know, we've got the CMBR, and we can, you know, actually look at the radiation that was, you know, coming off of the earliest formed particles and stuff, and or as they cooled. at the same time, it's like you ask them, how do you know? And they're like, well, it says so in the Bible. It's like, okay, well, let's actually explore this Bible. It's, gives these generations all the way back to Adam. You kind of triangulate, oh, this is about 6,000 years or so, give or take. And it's like, there is literally evidence that directly proves that wrong. So you have evidence against one position, evidence for another position. They're not on equal footing, not even by the slightest stretch of the imagination.
Not even close.
Well,
And
when
I
they
think
do
there's
that
some
explanation where they say, well, you have faith too. That always seems to me like they're saying faith is bullshit, though. So I don't get that argument.
They do seem to
I think it's jealousy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they'll accuse you of having faith, and they'll accuse you of being religious, and those are things that they happily accept about themselves. And I think that jealousy is a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Another one of those deliberate liars is the Prager University.
Oh, those guys.
Dennis Prager, who said that he thinks that all people have to believe, as in when he says believe, he means make believe in something that is completely irrational. That you have to convince yourself of something that is not true, but you're going to believe it anyway.
Yeah.
And I've never understood, why can't people just want to understand?
The sad thing with Dennis Prager is that a while back he released this video called, without God, murder isn't wrong. And he's talking about God to have an objective moral standard, and atheists will just go out and slaughter people and stuff. The sad thing about that is that, just as you were saying with, Frank Turek and Ray Comfort, that they've heard these arguments before and they keep on saying it even though they know the points are bunk. Prager had these exact debates about morality with Christopher Hitchens on multiple occasions. So I made a video where I revived Hitchens from the grave, and I animated it to where this video by PragerU had a response by Christopher Hitchens years after he died, using the exact points from the debates between the two of them. And it was like word for word. He's getting slaughtered again in this argument that he had the record straight. He knew the comebacks and the responses. He knew it was a bad argument, but he made it anyways.
Yeah.
Well, I think
matter to these people.
But that's why I won't talk to apologists.
I think John's trying to say something.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, that there's this saying, if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got.
Yep.
And if they're getting a lot of money from doing this, if they're seeing results, then they're just going to keep doing it, even if they know it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a question in the chat that if someone like Hovind or Kent or any of them decided to come out as atheists, would we support them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Aron's just laughing.
I'm sorry. The misspelled Cunthovind has spent his entire life as a fraud in every possible way. He's destroyed all of his interpersonal relationships. He's had children removed from him because of his irresponsibility. He's had a convicted pedophile on his slave ranch. He's had some child had died because of the neglect of that slave ranch that he runs. There is nothing good about that man at all, except that he's not in power.
Well, the good thing about him is that he's not an atheist, so it doesn't give our movement a bad name. I do believe that people deserve.
Father couldn't wait to come back.
I'm sorry, what?
When that child died at his dinosaur Adventureland or whatever the fuck it is, he actually came out with a video and had the fucking balls.
Oh, that's right.
The father of the child told him he couldn't wait to bring his family back.
Yeah.
The child that died.
How did he die?
He drowned.
So I can tell you this. The kid, like, apparently they have a pond or something, and the kid had gotten away from his or her parent. I think it was his parents, and fallen into the pond, and they didn't realize it, and he couldn't swim, and so he drowned.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And so basically his Kent Hovind's argument for that was, what are we supposed to do? Line the entire coastline of Florida with fences? And it's like, how does that even, like, I don't even understand how his brain works. Also, I'll say he has an unhealthy fascination with whale penis. That's all I'm going to say.
And I also would have a lot of difficulty trying to get a guy who thinks it was moral to drown literally every child in the world at one time to find something wrong with what happened on his park with a child drowning.
Yeah.
I will say that I do tend to lean more in the direction of I think that people deserve second chances, and I want there to be a path to redemption in a way that people can change course. Some people at a certain age are kind of like, you know what, I've given up hope on that person. I don't really think that they're ever going to change. But I would say for most Christian apologists, like I do see a shred of past me in them. Like there are all kinds of crazy, ridiculous stuff that I believed, and beliefs that I now look back on and I see as immoral and harmful. And I've very much changed since then. So I do tend to lean more heavily towards the belief that people deserve another chance and some path to change.
I'm about to say, if you were to judge me on 20-year-old me, every single last one of you would hate my fucking guts. I can't tell you the number of people I called faggots.
Me.
What's that?
I hate 20-year-old me.
I hate 20-year-old me. It's like if I went back, if I could talk at 48 to 20-year-old me, I'd slap the taste out of his mouth. I can't tell the number of gay people I called faggots and told them, you're a reprobate, you're choosing this, and you're going to go to hell. And
I'm
so,
really glad that I didn't have Twitter 20 years ago or 10 years ago.
Makes two of us.
Not everybody cell phone camera.
Yeah, and so if you were to judge us at our worst moment and put that on a loop, we would all, or at least I, would be a hot steaming pile of monkey shit. And so even the Comforts, the Hovens, all those assholes, I would at least be willing to listen to their story if they came out as an atheist.
Yeah, I don't want to talk any more than I deserve to in this, because I don't think we've heard enough from Godless Engineer or Dark.
I don't think we've heard enough from Erin.
Well, I would just like to add that when I was 20, I was absolutely charming.
Bullshit. No one was. You thought you were, because we all thought we were the shit at 20. And at 48, I can look back and say, I wasn't the shit. I was shit.
I was so proud of myself at 20. I was absolutely convinced that I'm the shit. I had to have a child to realize that the axis of the earth does not run through.
Does not what?
That the axis of the earth does not run through my colon.
Hey, can I ask Erin a question real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of religiosity and morality, did you ever have Christians that would come into your strip club specifically trying to convert the strippers?
Oh, that's a great.
That was actually that was the group that would come in. Yeah. The outreach group that would come in, they would come in on Thursdays. My most recent schedule was Tuesdays and Thursdays. And they would be there on Thursdays, and they would line up their little goodie bags. And I had spoke to the owner about it several times. I said, they're outside in the parking lot proselytizing to not, they're not just targeting the girls, they're targeting your customers. And I'm like, why would you wouldn't, if you owned a McDonald's, you wouldn't let somebody come in there and tell your customers that they're fat and shouldn't be eating that.
Or like vegan protesters.
In here and do this, and they're actually trying to change your customers. And so what I would do and everybody of course thought it was charming, and because I danced to like Slayer and Pantera and things like that. So I was always hardcore. So they would line up their little goodie bags on the bar, and everybody would say, "Oh, you can have one, no strings attached." So I'd always pick it up and I'd walk directly over to the garbage can and drop it in. And everybody just thought that was hilarious, but that was their point. Would be to come and to proselytize the girls while saying that they were fighting sex trafficking and things like that. And that was something else I brought up to the owner too. I said, do you understand that they are basically accusing you of sex trafficking? And we all know that that's not the case. The lady that actually ran it, because I knew her, she knew that that wasn't the case in our particular market. You know, if you're an entertainer, you don't, sex traffickers don't audition. You're not providing your ID and your social security number to become a sex trafficking victim. But they would absolutely use those tactics, not any different really than hookers for Jesus and other groups like that do, where their main goal is to convert, and they use the context or the pretext of helping people, of helping girls. Oh, we just want you to feel, though our group was, don't you want to be loved and respected? And I'm like, well, that's a really shitty thing to say, because I am loved and respected, and you telling me that is basically assuming that I'm not. And so, yeah, their whole goal under the guise of helping and trying to remove somebody from a bad situation was to convert, but they didn't, they wouldn't necessarily come in as customers. I worked at one club where somebody did, but I hadn't had anybody come in as a customer and get dances and things like that and then try to convert you afterwards. We did have somebody come in dressed as Jesus with the robes and everything and get dances. He was actually quite a lovely fellow and a great tipper.
Now, were people who were standing outside trying to convert, were most of them trying to just convert the entertainers, or were they trying to convert the customers who were going in to get dances?
Great question.
Both. But the bouncers and the owners were actually more resistant to that than they were to them coming into the club and actually trying to speak to the girls. That just, I guess, more directly affected their revenue. And a lot of the girls, and I would try to tell them in the dressing room when they were all, excited about their little goodie bags, they'd get like chapsticks and, candy and shit like that. And I would say, you realize that they're spouting on their website that you're a victim and that you're being abused and that nobody loves you and nobody respects you and what you do is not an okay thing. And I said, accepting these gifts is basically validating what they're saying, which I had a real problem with because that was ridiculous. I personally, and actually I wanted to tell you, Robert, don't feel bad about not being, educated. I literally dropped out of college after graduating high school early to be a stripper. So we're good, dude. We're on the same level.
I got you.
And so I found it really reprehensible and actually just unethical for them to come in and try to pull that type of it was terribly dishonest. There weren't any. I've never worked in a club in 20 years where I suspected anybody being a victim of sex trafficking.
Wow.
It's funny. I grew up in liberal Chicago, born and raised in Chicago. And throughout my, first 25 years, I never saw a strip club around there at all. When I joined the Army and went to the country, Georgia, Fort Benning, Kentucky, there were strip clubs everywhere. And these are like deep red states. And that's when I first started seeing strip clubs, was out in the country, out in the conservative areas. And I just always thought that was funny.
I live in Georgia now. I'm not from here, obviously, but it is, my whole town, there's not a lot of strip clubs and stuff in this town, but it's mostly pawn shops and stuff like that, but getting closer into the city and stuff. I'm from Connecticut, never seen anything like it. And there's just a lot more of it. But there's also a church every fucking third building here too. So
my very first strip club got turned into a church. And
really?
the day after it changed, it's a Russian, or that whole area is populated by a lot of Russian immigrants, and I believe Ukrainian, and they turned it into a Russian church. But the day after the closing party, that same group that I was talking about took a big picture, sort of like the ones where you see people posing with like their trophy tigers and elephants and shit. They took a big like trophy picture as if they had something to do with the club getting shut down. What it actually had to do with was zoning laws and other stuff, likely maybe some tax evasion and things along those lines.
Well, yeah, but who prayed for that to happen? It was probably their prayers.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things that really actually pisses me, I'm really irritated by this issue. What really irritates me about their stance as far as the trafficking goes, and like I said, this goes for the other group Hookers for Jesus. Andrew Seidel took this on also, is they ignore the massage parlor across the street with the blacked out windows and the neon signs that's open 24 hours. So if you go to the strip club and you spend $500 getting lap dances and you're all worked up and you know, lap dances are by definition anticlimactic, you can go right across the street and go to a massage parlor, which is very obviously not, staffed by.
You're saying they have happy endings.
Yeah, correct. So they would go across the street where it's far more likely that that women are being brought in from other countries for that purpose, where you're actually looking at abuse and prostitution in a whole area that should be stopped. That is not okay. It's the same thing with the Wayfair conspiracy bullshit, is where, you have people chasing these pretend demons, and they're completely, because they're trying to further their own agenda. And what they're doing is they're completely ignoring the actual real problem of sex trafficking. They're throwing shade at porn stars and things like that, but they're missing the videos that are out there that are actual abuse videos. And they're doing it because it's easier to target the people that are out there, more vocal than the tiny little massage parlor in the strip mall, where God knows what's going on in there and how many women that actually need help. That's where I have a real issue, and truly one of the reasons why I started writing in the first place. Number one, because I wanted to change the narrative, but I got really fucking tired of the Dr. Phil stereotype and the Christian people coming after to save women. And it's like, some people actually do this because they want to do it, because they enjoy it, because it's empowering. And basically what you're saying when you're telling strippers shouldn't be doing what they're doing is that they should be ashamed, that somehow sexuality and nudity is something to be ashamed of. And that's, in my view, and obviously you guys are more educated than I am, in my view, that comes from religious ideas and subjugation and a way to control women by controlling and shaming their sexuality.
What's empowering about having such manipulative control over your entire audience?
What is empowering about that?
Yeah, I was being sarcastic.
Oh, are you being sarcastic? I was like, well.
I wanted to share something with you. There was a local Dallas club that because of the pandemic, this local Dallas club has closed. But it had been the premier goth club in the Dallas area for a long time. It was called The Church, which of course was only the church on Sundays. The rest of the week it was called the Lizard Lounge. But on Sundays it was the church, and it was the great hangout for vampires back in the day. And I remember showing up to this thing on Halloween as Jesus with the crown of thorns. I had the I forget what you call the little holes in the hands, the stigmata. I had beautifully done stigmata and all of that. And I'm in the men's room at the time. I'm pissing at the time. He wants to start a fight with me for showing up to a goth club as Jesus. And I remember being just drunk enough that I know I can take on him and his friends and say, hey, you want to see me turn this water? I'm pissing. You want to see me turn this water into wine? You want to drink? Let me bless you, my son.
That's a great story.
So I don't know if many of you guys are really in the know about the current conspiracy theories, but Erin mentioned the Wayfair thing, which I don't know if that went over anybody's head, but basically it's been speculated that Wayfair overprices their furniture and is hiding abducted children in their products and shipping them across the country to elites in the country to have their way with. And I agree with Erin that it really does, like, that kind of conspiracy nonsense detracts from actual issues that we have with sex trafficking and everything like that. And to hit on to something what Erin said is that I really feel like a lot of religious institutions and organizations and just people out there that control these things, they care more about the optics of their particular religion and organization. They don't care about the actual internal issues that they face or anything that is really a problem in the world. They just care about how things look. So like a strip club obviously looks like a strip club, promotes itself as a strip club, and that's a really good picture there.
Oh, come on.
they care about the optics of it, right? So like a parlor, a massage parlor that parades itself as like a legitimate business that's not engaged in sex trafficking and it seems to be a legitimate business. They don't care about what goes on behind closed doors. They only care about what people can see. And they even apply this to their own organizations, especially like the Catholic organization. They just care about how the Catholic Church looks. They don't care about the actual internal issues that are going on within the Catholic Church. Now, that might have changed in recent years, but I mean, they don't have a $4 billion fund to pay off sexual abuse victims for nothing. It's so that it keeps it out of the news, out of the public light, so that they don't look bad. They don't care that it's going on. If they cared, then they would take priests, out of circulation instead of just recirculating them in the system. So I get the feeling that a lot of these organizations really don't care about the actual problems people face. They just care about how they look.
Yeah.
So you mean when I went and I bought that wardrobe from Wayfair, the little kid the Taiwanese boy that showed up in it, that's what that was for?
Yeah. So the
lady that runs the organization that I've been talking crap about, I unfriended her a while ago because I met her in the mall and she insisted on hugging me, and afterwards I felt like foul. But there's this whole big stripper group I can't like get out of. It's like stripper Jenga. If I unfriend like the wrong person, I lose like a whole lot of them. So I sort of, try to stay connected. But her and a person who I am actually friends with, were spouting off about this Wayfair thing, and I didn't say anything. I don't follow either one of their feeds, but of course I got like morbidly curious and checked it out, and I saw them. That was how I really became aware of the Wayfair thing. And I'm giving a speech on debunking pseudoscience and conspiracy and things like that in September. And so I was kind of looking up at it, and I'm reading their comments, and they are like truly distressed, and
like
absolutely
level.
Yeah, like they believe that this, and I'm like, is this not the easiest thing in the whole world to debunk? And the head of that organization, I don't think she is anymore, but she said, oh, and people are so quick to write this off as a conspiracy theory. They just wrote it off too fast. And I'm like, they wrote it off too fast because it came from a Reddit post that meant absolutely jack shit nothing. That people read code into something that didn't exist. That's why they wrote it off so fast. It's because it was so obviously bullshit that it's not even worth it. But they are like upset about it, upset about it. And I'm like, this is insane. These are people that have worked in the sex industry and know where the actual traffickers come from, where the actual abuse exists. And somehow, even with that knowledge, they are still taken in by this bullshit. And I do think what you said is that it does have a lot to do with optics. It's very easy for people to jump on something like that, and then you have all the other conspiracy shit behind it with the political stuff and that whole thing driving that particular thing. But it just blew me away because no matter how much I research and no matter how much I study why people believe in such complete garbage, it never really gets into my head. I can never really quite relate and understand how somebody, especially with inside knowledge of how that kind of stuff works, it can buy into that stuff.
I had a dear friend for a long time that was a total nude dancer. And the
That's
funny
what I
thing
did too, by the way. mostly.
the funny thing is that when she was a total nude dancer, she was also Christian. And we had very strained conversations, her and I, even though we were good friends. You know, anytime religion came up, that was an issue. But she then became an atheist at some point shortly thereafter, and then switched career from being a stripper to being a mortician. She's still dealing with stiffs.
Okay, I'm about to say, you now have my attention.
The funny thing is,
it's a habit that's hard to break.
she has to deal with this huge contrast in both careers. As a Christian, as a stripper, it seems hypocritical, right? But then she becomes a Christian as an atheist, and she has to deal with all of these people and their religious convictions, and she has to bite her tongue the whole time.
Just in case I wasn't going to go to hell for laughing at what you just said, thank you for paving my way. I'm going to put on my gasoline underwear. Thank you. Either way, she's dealing with stiffs. Thank you very much. I'm going to hell now.
I've noticed too, that a lot of these people that believe in these wacky conspiracy theories are religious, and I think that that's no coincidence. I mean, they've shown to be gullible. I mean, I don't want to say that everybody who is religious is gullible. Some people have better reasons than others, but you're part of that club of gullibility, and I think that that's one of the reasons it's so attractive in politics, because it's a good litmus test for politicians. It's an easy way to pass a morality check, and also to appeal to just have a ready-made constituency that you can just placate with. I'm one of you. I'm part of the club, and there's no work involved. There's no it's you have this ready-made group of people that have a certain amount of gullibility, and that is very valuable for politicians. I think the current politician, who we all are quite familiar with, has played to that to a tremendous degree, he would say.
You got to do the hands while you're at it.
Yeah, got to do accordion hands. But
Okay, so I've kept you guys almost 2 hours. I'm sorry for that, but thank you so much. I think I'm going to do this once a month. I think the next time I would like to delve into the politics of it. So everybody is, welcome back, whoever wants to come. But anything anybody wants to shill or say before they go? Thomas, we'll start with you.
The number one thing I would say is check out Holy Koolaid on YouTube, the animations and the videos that I do. And also, hopefully by next year, COVID will be largely behind us. I'm not sure if we'll have a vaccine by that point, but here's to hoping. If so, then the Faithless Forum Conference is definitely something you don't want to miss. It's going to be in Austin, Texas, right here in the middle of the Bible Belt. So yeah, those are the two big things.
My whole screen just went dark. Okay, hold on, we're back.
Yeah, we can see you and kind of see you. We can hear you, Robert. Or not anymore. Okay, Godless Engineer, go ahead.
Yeah, so if I could leave anybody here with any advice or anything like that, it would be to feel confident.
I'm going to knock one out too. Strong Robert channel. Oh, go ahead.
If I could leave people with anything, it would be to stand up and use your voice. Have that confidence to stand up for yourself and push back against any kind of any kind of bigotry thrown your way, regardless of your position. That's the main thing that I advocate on my channel. You can also check out my channel if you want to, where I do a lot of things, but that mainly just having the confidence to stand up for yourself and stand up for the community in general.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Dark Matter?
Oh, well, let me defer to Angry Cripple because his connection is we don't know if it'll go out. So I would.
Okay, go ahead, Robert.
Right.
No, y'all go ahead. I can hear everybody now.
Yep, we can
Oh,
hear
okay.
you too. So very good.
All right.
go ahead. Finish up then. We'll get to him. I promise.
Okay, I'll just say that you can find me anywhere on YouTube or Twitter as Dark Matter 20 or Twitch as Dark Matter 2525. That's my name across all three of those platforms, and that's usually where I'm posting. Yeah, that's who I am.
Thank you, Aron.
I've been a full-time activist since 2014. So if you're looking for me, please look first at patreon.com/ARONRA. I need all the help I can get. And I'm delighted that we've had some minimal level of impact against a tsunami of stupid in recent years.
Yes, thank you so much for everything you do, Erin.
Well, I am going to talk quickly because I'm about to go black here pretty shortly. You can find me on Amazon at Erin Lewis. Spelling is important. ErinLewis.com has links to other podcasts, articles, everything I've done. I think that's about it. All my books are available on Amazon and Audible. I'm starting to dip my toe into fiction, which is super fun. And obviously, I'm always on Twitter, probably way too much. So I'm going to go ahead and say thank you and bye-bye because my phone is about to die. So,
Erin, thank you so
Hey,
much.
Erin.
Robert.
One, I just want to say thanks to everybody, and again, one more time to Fanboy. Y'all were very instrumental, all of y'all, and when I was kind of trying to figure out what the fuck it is I was. So again, one more time, thanks for all of y'all. Aron, I watched all your shit, and again, thank you very much. You are instrumental more than what you know. I'm on Gonna Go For It. We talk to theists and do the whole what do you believe and why. Stronger with Robert Reed, where I talk. There are dogs in the background, sorry. Stronger with Robert Reed, where I talk about nothing but mental health and, all that garbage. But again, for everyone who's listening and for the panel, I can't thank y'all enough because, again, for a guy who was hardcore religious and I was probably 5 strides, just a little bit past the Ray Comfort, to be able to break free from that, I couldn't have done it without watching y'all's videos and listening to y'all's debates. And for the 100 that will miss it, you guys are going to catch 2. And I'm one of the 2. And I honestly and truly can't thank y'all enough for continuing to speak out. And now I'm trying to follow in y'all's footsteps, to be honest, and maybe I can catch 2. But more importantly, for everyone who I'm listening to right now, honestly and truly, thank you very much, because y'all are shaping lives, whether you realize it or not, because you've changed mine.
Thank you very much.
And I'll say thank you too for everybody for coming. Like I said, I just wanted some positive voices and in the community, which you all do so very well. There's so much that you do. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody that came in the chat. Just remember to think critically. We'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.